The differential compensates the differences in wheel speeds when cornering. The wheels on the inner side of a corner cover a shorter distance than the outer wheels and therefore turn more slowly. Conversely, this means that the outer wheels require more power to cover the greater distance in the same time. A transmission inside the differential distributes the engine's power to the hypercar's individual wheels to varying degrees. Bringing the vehicle to a stop from its top speed of 420 kilometers an hour poses a major challenge for the brake system. The temperature can soar to 1,100 degrees when the supercar is braked. That's as hot as glowing lava. The men in the atelier therefore also fit a heat shield on the wheel suspension before installing the carbon ceramic brake discs. One of the sport brake discs weighs around 8.5 kilograms. Its caliper is the world's largest 3D printed titanium part. The CHIRON currently has the most powerful brakes of any production vehicle worldwide. But this is not enough for the French.
I have here a design model of a brake saddle that we don't have in production yet, but we're testing it. Where you see material on this part, that's where the load path is happening, and that's where the strength needs to be on this building part. And where there is no material at all, there's also no load on the part. That means you can save that weight. It doesn't need any styling lines, but just the pure genius of the technical development is aesthetically so interesting and so intriguing that you leave well enough alone and apply it to the car. And this is really fascinating in itself.
The Bugatti crew assembles the front of the monocoque. This worker is fitting a guard for the CHIRON's sensitive electronics and mounting a control unit for controlling the vehicle dynamics. Later on, this so-called ESC helps the driver to keep the hypercar under control. By specifically braking individual wheels, for instance, the system prevents the vehicle from skidding when cornering at high speed.
Well, here we go. We're zooming in on the beautiful purple paint job on this 1970 GT.
High speed. Over a period of 4 days, the team has installed 2,600 components at the special stations. An important ceremony is now on the agenda for the front and rear frames. Like everything at Bugatti, the marriage of the monocoque and the rear section in the Molsheim Luxury Atelier is something special. The crew first moves the platforms to the same height. The frame sections have to fit precisely in one another. In the worst case, the construction would have to be taken apart again to adjust individual elements. The three men now maneuver the 750-kilogram rear section to the monocoque. The iron wave accompanies the rear section to its better half. The team gathers its strength again for the last few centimeters. The fact that the CHIRON's chassis consists of two parts offers several advantages. So that the driver's cockpit is subsequently stable and therefore as safe as possible, the front section is made completely of carbon. However, the entire body is too big to be built entirely of this lightweight material. The vehicle is also designed so that the rear end can tear off in the event of an accident. Because if the engine catches fire, things quickly become dangerous. A total of 14 titanium bolts that the technicians are now fastening ensure that the front and rear sections are joined firmly together. On the underbody, two Bugatti mechanics now fasten the lines for the luxury car's operating fluids. Later on, engine and transmission oil as well as brake fluid will flow through them. The CHIRON's fuel hoses are made of tough polyamide plastic. The airstream at the front end of the vehicle ends up in these two carbon chambers. Via special filters, it flows into the four turbochargers' compressors, where it is then forced into the cylinders at increased pressure. This means that there is more air and therefore more oxygen for combusting the fuel. The result is a more powerful explosion, higher pressure, and thus linear engine power output. The Bugatti's special tires are custom products from Michelin. With a width of around 36 centimeters, the tires have to withstand enormous forces during vehicle operation. At maximum speed, the wheels rotate around 50 times per second. This means that 7 metric tons are pulling on their tread. That tortures the tough rubber. The CHIRON is fitted with semi-slicks. They have a lower tread depth and therefore less weight. As a result, the tires offer plenty of grip despite the enormous centrifugal forces. A set of the semi-slicks costs €9,250. The hypercar is now filled with its operating fluids. An employee feeds the vehicle with engine oil, brake fluid, and 40 liters of water. When the car is driving, this is circulated 20 times per minute by the pump to prevent the engine and powertrain from overheating. The mechanic then fills the hypercar's tank. The fuel tank can hold 100 liters of gasoline. The CHIRON consumes an average of 22.5 liters every 100 kilometers. The Bugatti's rolling chassis now proceeds to its first test station in the Atelier's annex. The French had to develop a new dynamometer for the CHIRON, which is capable of withstanding the hypercar's 1,500 horsepower. This means that the Bugatti dynamometer is also the most powerful of its kind in the world. A technician first attaches the 2-ton vehicle to these wheel clamps. The safety flap of the acceleration roller then drops down and the ventilation system shafts rise up. Then he fastens a fresh air hose to the front of the chassis so that he doesn't suffocate in the cockpit. His colleagues have provisionally fitted a windshield in the luxury car. The technician now also fits 2 doors to establish the most realistic conditions possible in the vehicle interior. Now, the high-performance car can show what it's made of for the first time. The employee accelerates up to 200 kilometers an hour. The sports car has to complete a total of 342 tests. He tests the engine, the transmission, and all vehicle dynamics programs for 3 hours. The Bugatti covers around 60 kilometers on the dynamometer. This CHIRON has passed all of the tests. The employee releases the vehicle from the wheel clamps and removes the doors. His colleague now takes this superlative on wheels to the next station. Here, the CHIRON is dressed in its Sunday best. To do this, the exterior crew pre-assembles the body parts next to the lifting columns and cleans and polishes them. The individual elements are large and fragile. That makes this work step extremely demanding.
On reçoit des pièces qui sont peintes.
We get parts that are perfectly painted and absolutely flawless.
Sans aucun défaut. Après, ce qui est compliqué, c'est
What is then complicated for us is to install these parts without damaging them.
pas évident.
That's not easy.
Faut être
We have to take great care, work very precisely, and attach the parts so that everything is perfect for the final quality check, and the customer's ultimately satisfied.
que le client soit satisfait, quoi.
It takes up to 4 days to clothe the vehicle. Installing the windshield is particularly complicated. It has to be positioned exactly and be absolutely watertight. To install the windshield, the technicians first coat the body with a primer. They apply a special adhesive onto the safety glass. The workers then place the windshield onto the vehicle frame using a vacuum lifter. The two-component mixture reacts to form a particularly elastic resin and ensures that the glass can withstand even strong vibrations. Each CHIRON is a unique work of art and can be completely individualized. The choice of material and color combinations for styling the vehicle is virtually unlimited. Ettore Bugatti himself once said perfection is never achieved. But to this very day, designers have been attempting to create the most perfect models with a mixture of unbridled power, technical beauty, and flawless elegance. To accomplish this, they work closely with the developers. Because the paramount objective of motorsport artists is form follows performance. The striking C of the Bugatti DNA on both of the CHIRON's flanks therefore also serves a specific purpose.
To a lot of people, that line looks like a stylistic idea of a designer, or, oh, because it looks so nice and romantic, let's just do it like that. It's exactly the opposite. The performance need from the engineer was as much air intake along the whole body side of the car was needed to feed all that pressured air into the engine compartment for cooling purposes. And for me, that is always the most authentic way as a car designer that I can answer the need of a technical problem with a stylistic combination.
Bugatti's vehicle DNA has constantly evolved according to this principle. Due to its shape, the exclusive coupe's extraordinary radiator grille has been nicknamed the Horseshoe. In 1910, however, the first Bugatti model, the Type 13, had an egg-shaped front end. To improve the vehicle's aerodynamics and cool the increasingly larger engine, the designers adapted the look of the grille to the technical requirements. Probably the only part of a Bugatti whose shape or weight has not been optimized is the brand logo. This CHIRON in the atelier in Molsheim is now almost fully dressed. Each paneling element also plays a role in the complex aerodynamics. This consists of active and passive systems. All of the components integrated into the paneling are passive. The active modules can be actuated and adjusted to the position and speed of the vehicle. The super sports car is a master of aerodynamics. The air curtains at the front specifically guide the impacting air pressure through and past the vehicle. This presses the CHIRON onto the asphalt and cools the brakes. The 1.5 meter wide rear spoiler adapts fully automatically to the respective driving situation. 0.8 seconds after applying the brakes, the adaptive wing tilts to an angle of 49 degrees, thus acting as an extremely effective air brake to decelerate the Bugatti. The hydraulic spoiler is the last of a total of 55 panel parts that the mechanics fit onto the luxury car.
We regulate the angular position of the rear wing, the diffuser flaps, and the underbody via the speed range. This is how we ensure that the vehicle is safe in every driving situation and that the focus is on straight line stability or agility.
In 2017, the air brake played an important role in another world record. Formula One winner Juan Pablo Montoya accelerated the CHIRON to 400 kilometers an hour from a standing start. After 700 meters, he was already doing over 300 kilometers an hour. In the 33rd second, the Colombian racing driver reached the 400 kilometer an hour mark. He brought the 2-ton vehicle to a standstill again after 491 meters in just 9.3 seconds by fully applying the brakes. Montoya took exactly 41.96 seconds and covered a distance of 3.1 kilometers to accelerate the Chiron up to its top speed and brake it. That was a new world record. So far, no other vehicle has managed to achieve this outstanding performance. A force of 850 kilograms presses on the rear wing during maximum braking from top speed. This brings the hypercar's rear axle to its knees. During this sharp braking maneuver, forces of around 2G act on the vehicle and the driver. A further Chiron has now been fully assembled at the Bugatti premises in Molsheim, France. So that it's not scratched, during its first test drive, the employee is covering each millimeter of the hyper sports car with a protective film. Covering the paneling takes around 4 hours. This supercar has been fully covered. Later on, it will demonstrate what it's capable of. Each Chiron has to complete a test drive of around 350 kilometers before being delivered.
We do the test drives with the protective film in the car and the windshield. It takes half a day to cover the Chiron with film, but it's up to us not to damage the car under any circumstances. We want to deliver a perfect vehicle. Over these 350 kilometers, we simulate all the driving situations that the customer might encounter. Villages, country roads, mountains, freeways, and of course, we have rented the airfield in Colmar to test everything that's not allowed on public roads. Only then can the customer safely drive the vehicle at its top speed of 400 kilometers per hour.
So that he can do that, the quality tester now climbs into the driver's seat for around 5 hours. The cockpit is also fitted with protective covers. The tester additionally wears gloves so that no marks are left on the sports steering wheel. The tester tests different factors such as performance, the individual drive programs, and the background noise in the interior of the Chiron. If a leather seat so much as squeaks when cornering, the test driver notes this defect in his log. The tester then turns onto an airfield. Here, he immediately takes the Chiron up to its limits. He communicates with the tower crew by radio, because air traffic is still operating, and that can quickly become hazardous. The stormy weather also makes conditions more difficult. The test driver quickly drives up to the start of the 1.6 kilometer long takeoff runway. Then he's given the green light from the tower. The expert hits the accelerator. He accelerates the hypercar up to 300 kilometers an hour in around 13 seconds. However, the primary objective is not to test the top speed, but to get the Chiron to develop its full output of 1,500 horsepower. Due to safety reasons, the sports car is governed to 380 kilometers an hour. This special key can be used to accelerate it a further 40 kilometers an hour. As soon as the high-speed key is engaged on the left of the driver's seat, the vehicle checks all of its systems fully automatically. Because at over 400 kilometers an hour, any defect can immediately prove to be fatal.
The Chiron is wonderful to drive. It is incredibly stable when you switch from left to right. Its chassis is also fantastic. It responds to any road conditions like a dream, as if you were skiing.
After the stress tests, the Chiron is taken to the company's own washing facility. The hypercar can only be delivered to its new owner when it's absolutely spotless. Bugatti, the French sports car manufactory, is an absolute superlative. At 12 high-end production stations in Molsheim, 20 elite mechanics produce the fastest, most exquisite, and most extreme hypercars in the world. With